How a Romance Novel Saved the Galaxy by Ariana Deralte. Chapter 5, Bandamir, Part 1. Holdan had the worst luck. He'd been intrigued by what he read about the Jedi in the Mandalorians' dilemma. He wasn't obsessed like some could name, but it had perked his interest enough to follow after a tall, somewhat scrappy-looking Jedi. He wasn't after a Ridur, but wouldn't be adverse to finding out if Jedi were as good in bad as the book had said. Getting a berth on the transport was no problem, but that was where Holdan's luck had run out. First, the monument was too large. Its thousands of passengers made it hard for Holdan to easily find and encounter the Jedi. Second, it was infested not just with huts, which was bad enough, but whiphids and Arconans as well. Holdan was afraid to take his helmet off. The smell must be truly overwhelming with both huts and whiphids involved. Third, there was a massive rivalry going on between the miners from Off-World and Arcona, which was consuming the ship. Fourth, there was apparently a Jedi ad somewhere on board who had gotten lost. The Jetica hadn't been with the adult Jedi, and though hopefully they'd been up by now, Holdan was as concerned as the ship's crew with finding the kid. He was then frustrated to learn the kid had been found, but had been nearly strangled to death by a hut.
Wait, you left the Jetica alone after he was attacked? He demanded from the woman who led the Arcona miners.
He was treated by a Medrid first, she said.
Normally, he'd admire the way she did it back down, but this was a traumatized child she'd left unsupervised. Show me where he is, he ordered. It was a good thing he did. The Jetica was burning up with a fever. That med droid wasn't even worth its weight in scrap metal. He rushed him to the ship's actual med bay, then listened with growing worry to the medic's report. The Jetica needed treatment for an infection, and the ship was too cheap to keep Bacta on hand. Holdan was cursing the whole way from his room and back again as he fetched his own supply. He retreated out of the way to watch them apply the Bacta and put the kid on fluids. That was when the Jedi finally found the ad. Holdan expected for the Jedi to be relieved at finding his ad safe, or maybe angry at his poor treatment. Instead, the Jedi just looked annoyed, then resigned. He approached the medics, then placed his hand on the boy's head. Maybe he was using the Force? He must have been, because several long minutes later, the boy woke up and looked at the Jedi like he was the only hope in his world. The Jedi, in contrast, stopped touching the boy and backed away. The boy's voice was a near whisper that even his Boucher's sensors couldn't pick up, but he could hear the Jedi's responses. At first, the Jedi was gentle and reassuring, but then he told the boy, Obi-Wan, some nonsense that they were on different paths and Obi-Wan should forget about him. The ad only let his despair show for a bare moment before he was attempting to be mature and accepting of the gawking Jedi rejecting him. Holdan was so confused. He knew for a fact that other Mando Ade were returning with favorable tales about their encounters with Jedi. Tales which confirmed the appealing picture painted of them by the Mandalorians' dilemma. But here was this underage child, if he was 13, Holdan would eat his baldric, being told to shove off by an adult Jedi. A young Arconan came into the room, and Holdan was relieved to see that both he and the Jedi were smiling at the Arconan's hero worship for Obi-Wan. When the elder Jedi turned away so as to hide his smile from the boy, he finally saw Holdan sitting in the corner and twitched quite noticeably. Holdan smirked under his boucher. Obi-Wan, what is a Mandalorian doing here?
He had time to ask before the Arconan miner woman strode in and derailed the whole conversation. What followed was a discussion of sabotage, more about mining than he wanted to know, and an encounter with Jemba the Hutt. The Jedi absolutely forbid Obi-Wan from looking for the missing equipment and was about to head out of the room before he noticed Holdan again. Maybe Holdan should add some bright orange to his armor since the black and brown clearly wasn't standing out.
What is your purpose going to Bandamir?
The Jedi asked. Oh, right, that's where the transport was going. Well, Holdan certainly wasn't going to admit that he'd been thinking with his other head, and now was so turned off by the Jedi's treatment of the ad, all he was thinking about was adoption!
My name is Holdan. And you are?
He asked to stall for time.
Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn.
The Jedi gave the barest tilt of his head.
Well, Jinn, I have business there, though nothing to do with this mining Ozek.
And your business in this infirmary?
Should have known he couldn't properly lie to a Jedi.
I brought back them for the kid.
You did? Asked Obi-Wan in surprise. Thank you.
It was no problem,
Mandalorians don't usually care for Jedi,
said Jin, his tone striving for neutrality but falling a bit short.
Any Mandalorian who wouldn't help a hurt kid isn't a Mandalorian,
said Holden flatly. Jin seemed torn between interrogating him further and going off to do his own investigation of the mining sabotage. After a moment, the sabotage won. He reminded Obi-Wan to once again stay in bed and heal. Then the Jedi left. Obi-Wan, of course, immediately went to pull the tubes out of his arms and get out of bed. Holden rushed over and gently pulled his hands away from the tubes.
You need a medic to clear you first, Obi-Wan.
What I need is to find out who sabotaged those tunnelers,
said Obi-Wan. Why? Holden took the opportunity to take off his helmet so the kid could see him, and if the book was to be believed, sense him.
What do you mean, why? Because I need to help the miners. They could have been hurt.
Isn't that Jin's mission here? To help the miners with their dispute? He said you had a separate mission.
Obi-Wan looked down at his hands.
I've been assigned to the Agricole on Bandamir,
he said in a small voice. Even the Arconan seemed to sense the boy's misery and put a consoling hand on Obi-Wan's arm.
What's an Agricole?
asked Holden, trying to understand.
There are different service corps where Jedi who fail to be chosen as Padawans get sent. The Agricole grows plants and food. I need to prepare to be a farmer.
His voice wavered at the end like he was trying not to cry. The ad was, what, 11? 12? He was breaking Holden's heart here.
Is it a permanent posting?
He asked, still trying to figure out what was going on. The boy nodded.
Yes.
At your what age?
12. I'll be 13 in 4 weeks.
They sent you, an underage kid, alone on a, frankly, extremely dangerous journey to a job you don't want. One where you won't even be a Jedi.
I'm still a Jedi, said the voice fiercely, but I won't be a Jedi Knight.
Holden honestly hoped the kid didn't start crying because Holden would be joining him in that case. It was so clear that the ad wanted nothing more in the world than to be a Jedi warrior. He burned with such mental Carla that Holden was already planning far beyond adopting him. He'd find a Jedi Redur who didn't like romance if that was what it took. Obi-Wan would be a Jedi Knight if Holden had any say in it.
Is it common for the Jedi to just send their Ade off?
Are they?
Children.
Most initiates get chosen, but there's always a few that don't, explained Obi-Wan. There's also some who feel called to be in the call, like Alel from Aklan. She really wanted to be a teacher, so she went to the Edu call last year.
You have clans.
Mandalorians really did have a lot in common with the Jedi, didn't they?
We're raised in initiate clans in the temple until we're 13. There are sometimes people leave for the call or get chosen as a Padawan earlier.
Very interesting, and the Arconan was clearly intrigued as well, considering the mass groups they lived in, but Holden was getting off the point.
When Alel left, did she have a Jedi with her to take her to a posting?
He asked.
I don't know, said Obi-Wan. We said goodbye in the temple. They could have sent someone who met her at the transport.
He brightened.
They probably did, since the Edu call sent her all this information about how much they wanted her.
And why didn't this Agricole send someone to meet you?
Asked Holden.
I don't know. Maybe they did and I missed them. Clyde did say the crew was worried about me.
The boy looked down at his lap, embarrassed.
I'm not really sure how this works. I never left the temple before yesterday.
Oh, Kara! For 1 second, he was ready to murder every Jedi for their poor treatment of the ad. Then he reminded himself he had a cousin in Death Watch. He knew better than to hate a whole group for the actions of a few.
Listen, Obi-Wan.
The boy had flinched away from him, probably sensing his anger.
Let's get you discharged,
the returning medic said cheerfully, not even noticing he was interrupting. The medic detached the ad from the tubes, then suggested he should head for his cabin. Holden went to follow, but the ad sent him an apologetic look before grabbing the Arconan's hand and rushing away. Obi-Wan was still determined to find the saboteurs, Holden imagined.